In today's video, I'll show you how to install Mazda exhaust headers on your Mazda Rx8. So why did I choose these headers? Well, they're made out of stainless steel, they have a perfect direct fit, they have a O2 sensor hole, and they come with seals and a custom bracket that perfectly replaces the OEM one. If you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description where you can check it out. For the install, I brought my car at Sunside Tuning in Koper, Slovenia, where they know how to execute a quality job. Let's start by locating our front O2 sensor. Once located, we need to disconnect it. Next, it's time to jack up the car on the highest setting and put it on all 4 jack stands. After that, remove the lug nuts holding your front wheel and then take them out. These are my current headers. We'll start by spraying some WD-40 on the nuts holding the header to the catalytic converter. When done, it's time to loosen up the 3 nuts and then unscrew them with your ratchet and wrench. Take them out and let the catalytic converter hang. Next, remove the 3 bolts holding the header's bracket and take it out. Next up, it's time to spray the bolts holding the header with some WD-40. There are 3 on the upper part and 3 on the lower part. After that, it's time to raise the engine with the jack just a bit. Have a block of wood on the arm of the jack so you won't do any damage. Spray the middle bolt holding the engine mount with some WD-40, unscrew it and take it out. When done, do the same for the bolt on the left and also for the bolt on the right. Next, it's time to unscrew this nut right here and then take it out. After that, release the 2 bolts under this bracket and take them out. Next, it's time to take out our engine mount. Mine was so happy to see me that it decided to break, so you can only guess the title of a future video. Next up, it's time to remove the 6 bolts that are holding our headers to the engine. Unscrew the 3 bolts at the bottom with your ratchet and then take them out. When done, unscrew the 3 bolts on the top side and take them out. But before you start unbolting the top bolts, there is a big note. I eliminated the air pump, that's why I have a plate over here. But if you have the stock air pump in place, you'll have a metal tube going to the top of the engine. If you want to remove your headers, you'll have to take out the tube first. Remove the strut tower brace by removing 2 bolts on the side, or in my case, the 2 bolts holding the upper part to the bracket. When done, take it out. Next up, take your pliers and release the 2 clamps holding the rubber tube on the air pump and check valve. Take a hose pick and work your way inside the tube to get it nice and loose. Now leave the hose pick inside the tube of the air pump and pull it while also pulling the tube with your hand. Then remove the other part by twisting it and pulling it out with your hand. Disconnect the barrel sensor connector and the air pump connector. Use your ratchet to release the 3 bolts holding down the air pump and take them out. Take out the air pump, take a hose pick and release the big wire from the plastic holder. Next up, remove the bolt holding the check valve so that it's nice and loose. Next, remove the small tube. Use your hose pick to release the big wire from the plastic holder. Now if we take a look behind the rubber cover where we've removed the wheel, we can see 2 nuts holding a metal tube in place. Put a 10mm socket on a swivel joint and attach it to a long ratchet extension. Release the 2 nuts holding the tube in place. If the bolts don't move because they are rusty and worn, the only way you're gonna do this is that you get rounded bolt removal sockets. These sockets were lifesavers many times, and I cannot recommend them enough. If you're interested, I'll post a link to it in the description. For this part, I'm gonna use an adapter for 3/8 sockets, and since this nut is super rounded, I'm gonna use a 9mm socket instead of the 10mm. And the rusty nut is finally out. To get it out of the socket, simply use the metal stick that came with the kit and push it out. Now wiggle the check valve to get it out of the thread and take it out. Just like that. With that done, it's time to take out the stock headers. The easiest way to do it is to slide them out from the rear near the catalytic converter. And this is how my engine looks. It's a good idea to sand the connection to get rid of all the debris that has accumulated with time. Use a screwdriver to take out the old joint seal on the catalytic converter. Next, clean that connection with a metal brush. Next, it's time to remove the block of plate and the copper seal under it. If you had the metal tube, just remove the copper seal. Use your mother's metal sponge to clean the copper seal. Be gentle, because if your mother finds out, she won't be. Next, if you have the block of plate like me, take it away from the stock headers and put it on the new ones. But before doing that, we have to clean it with a metal sponge or sanding paper. When done, put the copper seal on the new header and on it the block of plate. Secure the block of plate by tightening the bolts on the side. If you had the air pump tube, you'll do this step after installing the headers. With that done, it's time to unscrew the auto sensor from your old header and screw it in the new one. Remember to tighten it with a wrench. Next, it's time to take the bracket that connected the engine to the engine mount. It's finally time to insert the headers the same way we took them out. Before you position them, remember to put into position the header seal that came in the box. There's only one way it can go up, so it's very easy to put. With the seal in place, it's time to connect the headers to the engine. Once on, screw in the 6 bolts with your hands and then tighten them with your ratchet until they're nice and tight. If you had the air pump tube, now is the time to put it back the same way you took it out. Now it's time to put back the bracket connecting the engine to the engine mount. Screw in the 2 bolts at the bottom and tighten them with a ratchet or wrench. Screw on the nut that mounts the bracket to the engine and use a ratchet with extension to tighten it. Next, insert the 3 bolts holding down the engine mount. Use a ratchet to tighten only the 2 ones on the side, so the left bolt and then the one on the right. Don't tighten the middle bolt just yet. When done, carefully and slowly lower the engine by releasing your jack that was holding it up. After that, use a wrench or ratchet to tighten the middle bolt on your engine mount. Now we're gonna put some sealing paste on our seal that connects the catalytic converter to the header. Position the seal in place, hold the pipe with one hand and with the other slide in the bolts that came with the kit. But we would not suggest to use those bolts because they are a little bit too short for our liking. Instead, we're gonna put slightly longer bolts. On them we're gonna put a washer, a crush washer, and then a nut. This way the connection is done right and consequently more secure. When done, use a wrench and a ratchet to tighten all 3 bolts. Now it's time to install the bracket that came with the headers. We suggest you slide in the bolt near the header first and then the other 2. Once in, tighten all 3 with your ratchet. To finish, it's time to reconnect your front O2 sensor. It's easier said than done, it's quite tricky. Next up, we need to put back the wheel, insert the nuts and then tighten them. If you use the jack, tighten the nuts with a ratchet and then put the car back on the ground and finish up tightening the nuts so that they are nice and secure. Alright, time to start up the car. No smoke coming out of the connections, that's a very good start. We can hear a slight rattle, but that is normal for this type of headers. With time, you're barely gonna notice it. With the car back on the ground, it's time to have a listen at the exhaust. Is there a difference with or without the headers? Well, let's have a listen to the before and after. I'll leave the link to the headers in the description and comment section. If you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and check out more Rx8 videos on my channel.